A huge, big story just coming out. The Deutsche Bank admits that it rigged the gold and silver market. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than this. We finally have a huge, big bank admitting the truth. What all of us conspiracy theorists have known for a long, long time. It was obvious to anybody that the dollar is not backed by anything. And if the truth were to come out, gold and silver must be a lot higher if people were able to see the truth. The problem is that in these banks, everything is pushed way into the basement. All the rotten derivatives and all the rotten securities, and that they're broke and they're busted and they're disgusted. It's like it's all hidden in the basement. And when people walk in the banks, the banks look oh so pretty with their marble walls, and their doors are still open, thanks to George Bush. Because see, in 2008 and '09, the banks actually admitted that they were totally broke and that the doors should be boarded up. Unfortunately, George Bush, the communist, socialist, fascist animal that he is, said, "Oh, we cannot have the banks close their doors, so I'm going to give them all this taxpayer money, and we're going to keep the doors open to the banks." He came out and told Americans this. He didn't even lie about it. He said, "Oh, this is very distasteful, but I have to give these banks money so they can keep the doors open. Yet if you and I have a business and we lose our money on a corrupt, fraudulent housing market, no matter how we lose our money, if you and I lose our money, nobody's there to bail us out. We just have to close the doors." So now finally, this corrupt, rigged system is falling to pieces quickly. I mean, we've even got Donald Trump. We got people who are running for the president of the United States now saying that the system is rigged right out there in the open. Bernie Sanders telling everybody. Now millions and millions of Americans their eyes are getting wide open. They're coming awake and they're saying, "Wow, is the system really rigged?" Hell yes, it's been rigged for a long time. Everybody's been sleeping. The banks are like this old rotten tree. They're dead. They're just ready to be pushed over. I mean, the system doesn't work when the government manipulates everything, even down to the unemployment numbers. I mean, I can't think of one statistic. I can't think of any numbers coming out of the government that are truthful. How bad does it have to get that our government has to resort to fraud and rigging and manipulation to stay in power? It's bad. Now, the Deutsche Bank finally coming out and admitting it. This is good news. And not only did Deutsche Bank do it and admitted to it, they're going to tell on the other guys. They're going to tell on all the other banks that are involved in it. And all the banks are involved. All the commercial banks are involved because they take orders from the CIA. The banking industry is in bed with the government. We've been preaching this for how many years? The conspiracy theorists have known this for many years. Americans, a lot of Americans, did not want to accept the truth, but now the truth is coming out. The banks are broke. There's no way for them to make money because who's borrowing money? The only people borrowing money is the governments. Guess what? And the governments don't even want to pay any interest rates. Do you know why the interest rate's at 0%? Because the governments want to borrow money, but they don't want to pay any interest. So guess what? This is just the beginning of a nightmare. When the banks come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're rigging the gold and silver market," guess what happens when the interest rates go up and the governments cannot afford to pay the interest? Wow, that's when the fun really begins. Because what you're watching here is the Western empires collapsing under the weight of their own arrogance and fraud and manipulation and corruption. And who's going to come to the top? As the Western empires are falling, there's one group of people who look very good. They got all the factories, they're working hard, they're very clever, they have all the new trains, they have all the new infrastructure, they've got all the money. You know where it is. It's in Asia. China is coming to the top. It's no coincidence that this news just coming out that gold and silver being manipulated by the Deutsche Bank. No coincidence that it's coming out right now, right before China is going to open up their gold market. You've heard about it. China now is going to have their own gold and silver market, and they're going to price the gold and silver in the yuan or the renminbi. This is another way for China to come to the top and saying, hey, we want to be a world player. We want to be a global player. Before China can be with the big boys, before China can have a reserve currency, they have to float their currency on the open market. It's not really floating right now. The renminbi, the China yuan, is tied to the dollar. It's not floating. So what you're seeing here with China having their own gold and silver market, that's the first step in making the Chinese money a floatable currency, meaning all the global players can come in and out of China without asking permission from the Chinese officials. This is just another step. You're watching the Western empires collapse, like I said, under the weight of their own arrogance and manipulation and fraud, and we're watching China actually being born as an empire. China is coming to terms with their power, their rich heritage, and their fantastic work ethic, and their ability to save money. You see, that's one thing that we're going to have to learn in the Western world, in America, in Canada, UK, wherever we are in the Western Empire. We're going to have to learn to save again. You see, because if you don't save, then there is no money to invest. That's why China is doing so well right now, because not only do they work hard, not only do they have all the factories, and they have a very great work ethic, they also save their money. You see, if you don't save your money, then there is no money for the banks to lend out. See, that's what happens. I mean, do we have to go over this, the ABCs of banking? It's like Americans, the American banking system went into some sort of twilight zone when they got in bed with the government and they started taking orders from the CIA and the NSA and the government. They just totally lost their mind. The bankers don't tell Americans, oh, you got to save money. And when you save money, you bring it to our banks and then we loan it out. No. Hell with that. We don't have to do that anymore. How's it work now? All I see, the Federal Reserve push the button. They give the bank $20 billion and everybody can have a party. And they can go have martini parties, and they can go have meetings at Wall Street, and they can pretend how great they are. That's what we got now. A government that pretends to be great. Wall Street, who pretends to be the almighty smart ones. The bankers who think they're more intelligent than anybody and everybody, but yet they went broke. So we got a government that knows nothing, but they tell the world they have all the answers. And what are the answers? The answers to the government is, okay, let's lie, let's rig the game, let's manipulate, let's twist the numbers around. Let's tell everybody the unemployment number is real low when the unemployment number is really high. Just lying, out and out lying. And now we have the proof that the banks are rigging the gold and the silver market. But there's one thing the banks won't tell you. Then they won't tell you, oh, but we had the okay and the cooperation of the government. You see, that's going to be the big secret that probably won't get out. The banks will take the fall. They say, okay, yeah, we rigged the market, but they're not going to tell us that they had the complete okay from the government.